mega mirror now impact. Sanitary napkins have been exempted from the goods and services taxes. Remember, it's been a relentless campaign by Mirror Now and women across the country. Sanitary napkins have finally become affordable. Our voices have been heard. The plea to exempt sanitary napkins from the GST has been going on for a long time. Multiple campaigns have been running for this, and now the GST Council has finally taken note of the necessity of doing this and has decided to completely exempt sanitary napkins from GST. Let's go across to Aishwarya Paliwal, who's joining me at this point. Aishwarya, what is the latest that you're picking up? We're continuing to cover the fact that sanitary napkins are now exempt from GST.
Well, definitely very good news coming for women across the country, and we at Mirror Now have been relentlessly for over a year talking how GST on the sanitary napkins is making it extremely unaffordable. Also, there have been certain reports that point to the fact that more than 50% of Indian women cannot afford even a single sanitary pad. And now in the 28 GST meet, which was being chaired by the interim finance minister Piyush Goyal, it has been decided now that GST will not be levied on sanitary napkins.
Right, Aishwarya, stay with us. Also joining me on the phone line is our executive editor, Faye D'Souza. Faye, this is, of course, a big win for Mirror Now campaign, but also, importantly, for women across the entire country who've been wanting this, who've been wanting the council and the government to understand that sanitary napkins are a necessity and should not be taxed at 12%.
Absolutely. This is a massive win for us because at least at Mirror Now, we've been fighting this for over a year.
Yes.
And there have been several activists who've been with us in this fight. I must point out that the data that was just given up by our colleague Aishwarya is actually an understatement of the true picture right now. It is about, the number of women who can actually afford and have access to sanitary napkins is in the teens. It's between 15 and 19% of the total menstruating population in the country. Above 80% of the women in our country don't have access to sanitary napkins, and as a result, they wind up using cloth, paper, newspaper, sand, leaves, all kinds of other, sort of makeshift, measures. And we must acknowledge that the lack of feminine hygiene costs us lives in cases that are extremely avoidable. Infections, cancer, and death, which we can avoid by giving all of these women access to sanitary napkins. And there's been so much argument against what we have asked for. People have said that, and there are people on the internet right now, on Twitter right now, saying that the input tax credit will actually make sanitary napkins more expensive after GST has been abolished. But I want to point out that the government, the GST Council, can remove input tax credit and actually make the product completely tax-free, like they have done for cottage industry products like sindoor and puja samagri and cotton and other things. It is possible to make it cheaper. Now, the argument of, if you do this, it'll actually become more expensive or that, the point was what we were asking for was simply to make the product more accessible, make it cheaper. And of course, there's another argument right now saying that, this cost will never be passed on. The companies are just going to absorb it. If that is the case, and we've seen the government and the finance ministry react in this manner in the past when they felt restaurants were absorbing the difference and not passing it on, there is a competition law and a fairness law that is part of the GST rules, and the government acts upon that as well. I just want to point out that the 12% tax rate that we had on the sanitary napkins up till now was meant for luxury products. And there is by no stretch of imagination an argument by which we can say that sanitary napkins are a luxury product. They are not. They're a necessity for everyone every month. And we have to find ways to make it more accessible. And the fight doesn't end here. This is the step that the finance minister and the GST Council could have taken, and they have. And for that, I thank them from the bottom of my heart. I am extremely grateful that they've heard us out, and they've considered all of the options, and they've decided to take this step. It shows a great level of understanding on their part as to what the problem really is. Now, post this, how do we actually make sure that all women in the country get access to sanitary napkins? that they're able to access them at an affordable rate, and they're able to access them every month. These are fights that will continue, that we have to on Mirror continue to fight and continue to find solutions for. But for today, this is a time to celebrate, because this means that the needs of women in India are in fact being taken seriously. Avni?
Absolutely, Faye. In fact, I'm also being joined by Trisha Shetty, who also herself has been running a big campaign for ensuring that sanitary napkins get exempt from GST. Trisha, this is a big win for all of us and for all the women across the entire country. And like Faye was pointing out, it's extremely heartening to know that our voices are being heard.
Undoubtedly, as she says, we actually picked up this issue and raised it in the public domain back in 2016. Since then, we've been petitioning for this, trying to raise awareness on this. We filed representation to 15 government authorities over the same issue. And when we realized that we were not getting a response, is when we launched the viral campaign Lahu Ka Lagan, where we then brought on Mirror Now's support as well, and brought on multiple influencers to lend their voice towards this. That's when Mirror Now came on board and supported Lahu Ka Lagan. And our demands were very simple. The second we raised awareness about the fact that only 12% of women out of the 490 women in India have access to menstrual hygiene products, and that the rest of them are forced to use unsafe alternatives like ash, plastic, dried leaves, that we have a 70% increase in reproductive tract infections, that India is the second leading contributor to cervical cancer death rates. We had support across all sectors, men, women, everyone was lending their support because they just found it absolutely unacceptable that even 80% of the female population in India is using safe menstrual hygiene products because they cannot afford it. The government is still taxing us 12%. And even though we raised this campaign, it did not yield any results. We then filed a public interest litigation. So we moved to court for this. Because for us, the end goal was always the same: ensure that women have guaranteed access to menstrual hygiene products, that they don't have to resort to using such unsafe alternatives which none of us who hold privilege would ever even dream of using. And we're really, really, really grateful to the Finance Ministry for finally doing what's right by the women and dropping the tax. For us, as she said, our fight doesn't end here. We still have a lot of the prayers that we've asked for in our public interest litigation, which includes better transparency when it comes to the schemes, which includes boosting the self-help groups here and promoting locally produced sanitary napkins to ensure that women across rural areas, even after the taxes drop, we know that they still can't afford. A lot of them will still not be able to afford that monthly expense on sanitary napkins. So to ensure that our government schemes reaches them, our fight will still continue in court. But for today, it is a great day, and we're grateful to Mirror Now for the support that we've received, and to every single person who tweeted to the Finance Minister, who raised their voice and lent their support for Lahu Ka Lagan.
Absolutely, Trisha. In fact, I'm going to hand it over to Faye. Faye, if you have any questions for Trisha.
Yes, Tisha, there are still some critics on the internet who've responded to me on Twitter saying that this will not help because companies will absorb the cost, and this will not help because the input tax credit will actually make the product even more expensive. Now, my response to this is the government, within the rules of the GST, has, at its disposal the possibility to take measures. But what is your argument to those critics who believe that this was not the right step in the right direction?
Faye, undoubtedly right. We've made sound arguments. So in our public interest litigation that we filed, we clearly asked for sanitary napkins to be classified under essential commodities, under the Essential Commodities Act. Because what that does is, the second you classify a commodity as an essential commodity, you can then put a price ceiling on it. Like, for example, pharmaceutical drugs, certain medicines which are deemed as necessary for public health, you have a price ceiling put on it. You can't inflate the price. Therefore, public interest litigation, to address this point of inflation, made sure that we put a caveat of including classified under essential commodities list, which the government is very well within its purview to do, and they still haven't done, which is how we moved to court. And we've also asked for boosting of self-help groups, invest money to ensure that domestically produced sanitary napkins have the kind of finances that they need, because currently, say, only 2 major MNCs have access to distribution. If you go to buy a sanitary napkin, unless you're going online, most pharmacies, most places, most grocery stores will sell you sanitary napkins only from 2 major MNCs, which is why they have a monopoly on the market. So our PIL has addressed all these issues beyond just asking for it to be tax-free. because it goes back to a fundamental right. It's discriminatory to tax one gender on a commodity.
Trisha, if I can interrupt for a minute, I'm also being joined by tax expert Abhishek Rastogi on the phone line. Abhishek, just coming to you on that same point that we were just discussing, because there are comments coming in as far as the fact that this input tax credit and how the prices could actually go up. Can we get your perspective on that?
See, I think if we talk about the technical provisions, I think one thing is very good, and I think the benefit should go, a lot of credit should go to Mirror now because it has been your campaign, is with respect to the exemption which has come in. Now the billion-dollar question or the moot point which arises is what happens. Will there be any impact with respect to the tax cascading?
Yes.
I think the first and the most foremost point is, which we made a couple of days back also, is that what we are talking is whether about 5% of the exemption rate. First and foremost important thing is that this reduction of the rate, the benefit with respect to the reduction of the rate has to go to the end consumer, because the anti-profiteering provisions as per Section 171 kicks in. The second point is that what will happen now is that there will be tax credits which would now lead to tax cascading, and what happens to those tax credits. So to that extent, will there be any loss to the manufacturing entity? So the answer there clearly is yes, there would be some sort of tax cascading, because to that extent, there will not be any utilization of those input taxes and there will be no offset. Having said that, it is very important to today understand the provisions of Section 54(3). And the provision there provides with respect to the inverted duty structure refund. The inverted duty structure refund is not applicable when there are exempted supplies, but the GST Council can carve out certain exceptions to this rule and can identify those products which are necessary in the larger public interest to give those input tax credit benefits, even there is an exemption. So in nutshell, speaking in a non-technical term now, that while this exemption to the extent of on the supplies is a very welcome move, there should be a reduction in the prices to the ultimate consumer. The tax credit which goes into the chain, which becomes a cost, there is still power with the GST Council to identify certain such supplies for which the taxes on the inputs can be refunded even when these are exempted supplies. So that provision is there. These can be treated as zero-rated supplies. The same treatment which are given to exports can also be given to certain supplies by making them exempt and giving the refund to the manufacturer to the extent of the taxes inbuilt in the inputs or the input services.
Right. All right. Faye, you wanted to come in. You have a question for Abhishek Rastogi.
Yes. So Abhishek, obviously there is the criticism that still continues, that input tax credit which you have addressed, and the second criticism is the fact that large manufacturers will absorb the benefit and not pass it on to the end consumer. Now, the GST Council has at its disposal rules that will that it can use to stop this sort of behavior. Can it not?
So I think one addressing your second point first. The manufacturers will have to pass on the duty benefit to the consumer. If that is not done, they can be dragged to the anti-profiteering authorities and, anybody for that matter, the consumer, the department, or anyone else who may or may not be related to the transaction can drag these people to the anti-profiteering authorities. So that concern gets addressed. That will not be an issue at all. All these manufacturers will have to pass the benefit of the reduction of the tax rate to the ultimate consumer. So I don't see a lot of challenge on that front. But yes, with respect to the inbuilt cost of the taxes on the input side, there would be some tax cascading now, because that would not go to the main chain of utilization. And there, I think, to that extent, there will be some loss to the manufacturers, because that will remain as a inbuilt cost to them.
All right. We've also got on the phone line Anila Singh joining us. Anila Singh, this is a big victory for women across the country now, the fact that sanitary napkins have become cheaper.
Absolutely. This is fantastic news for all women living in our country. And I must congratulate your channel as well, because your channel has always talked very positively regarding this thing. And on this topic, like many a times, debates were also there that there shouldn't be any GST on sanitary napkins. So definitely it is the day to cheer. And I think so each and every woman, I think they're very happy. And this is the day when we can celebrate our womanhood. And fantastic news. I must congratulate our government also for taking this step.
Absolutely. And if Faye is still with us, Faye, you would like to come in to ask Anla Singh?
Well, Anila Singh, obviously, from my entire team at Mirror Now and myself personally, I want to thank the government of India, the finance minister, the GST council, and the members those who work in the team of the finance ministry as well, because this is something that we have been asking for, and I think it is a great. There is a great sense of assurance to know that our voices are being heard in the finance ministry. The members of government are taking, voices from the media seriously, and are actually actioning or bringing in change based on what we have asked for. And I believe this is perhaps the purest form of a relationship between media and government, where criticism is welcome and changes are being actioned. So you have in the past, Anila Singh, carried so many messages from us to those in power. So this is a message also that I wish you would carry as well, that we are grateful, that we are humbled by the fact that our voices have been heard, and we look forward to working with the government like this again, on several other subjects.
I'm pretty sure, Faye, I think PM and Finance Minister, everybody must be hearing you right now. And you are the torchbearer. Not only like today we are talking about sanitary napkins, but I think we had so many debates about child safety button in the cabs, and you wanted them to be removed. The government has taken steps regarding that too. So you are the torchbearer in media line, I can say. Because of you, I think so positive changes are happening. I truly congratulate you for the effort you put in.
Many thanks. I thank you so much for acknowledging the effort, and for also being so generous with your time and your energy whenever we've had discussions on these subjects, and being positive about the criticism or the feedback that we have offered to the government on various subjects to do with citizen issues, specifically with women issues in India. Avni?
Absolutely. Thank you, Anla Singh, for joining us. And Faye, just a final word on this for now. The fact is that, like you pointed out, this is of course a very big step, a big victory. But now we have to go to the next level and ensure that sanitary napkins, menstrual hygiene, all these things reach every single woman in the entire country.
Absolutely, Avni. Like I said, it's a much longer fight. This is one step, but this is such a beautiful and positive step coming in from the GST Council, led by the Finance Ministry. It's amazing evidence to the fact that if the media and when the media asks the right questions and raises the right issues, it is possible to action real change in the country and impact the lives of individuals or impact the lives of citizens. And this is what we had launched Mirror Now, and this is what we had in mind when we launched this channel. This is what the channel was meant for. So it's tremendous. This is a tremendous sense of satisfaction for me today, and it's a sense of achievement that we've managed to raise an issue. Now, we believed at that point was important. There was no other channel that was actually picking it up. We picked it up at that point, was a youth with the issue, and we've actually action changed. This means that, what we're doing day in and day out at Mirror Now can actually influence the lives of individual citizens in this country, and that we're on the right track.
Absolutely, Faye. We're going to let you go for now, but we're going to continue to track this, and we'll reconnect with you in just a short while from now. Also joining me on the phone line is Shalini Thakre. Thank you very much for joining in. Your first reaction to this massive victory for women across the country here.
Namaskar. I definitely welcome this exemption of GST on sanitary napkins. It has taken some time because I think we have all been fighting for it for quite some time. And Mirror Now has been very instrumental in it. I remember the first time that when I met Arun Jaitley regarding this issue, the first step was from Mirror Now, which supported it. And we definitely congratulate Mirror Now for it also. To add to this, I would also like to say that This is just one step and the first step, because there is a lot of change that is required in this particular thing. It's not, GST is just one part of it. It needs to come into the Essential Commodities Act. This was our demand when we went to the finance minister also, and we hope we will be keeping on fighting for this. But definitely we congratulate and welcome this particular implementation.
All right. Thank you, Shalini Thakre, for joining us with your perspective on this. Let's go back to Aishwarya, who is still with us. Aishwarya, anything else that you're picking up at this point? We're, of course, still standing by to hear from the finance minister himself on this. All right, Aishwarya, just stay with us. I'm also being joined by Shaina NC. We'll go back to Aishwarya in just a bit. Shaina NC, of course, there is still the fine print that we're really waiting for now from the finance minister himself about this entire move. But, you know, this is a big, big victory.
It's a victory of all women of India, and I don't want to politicize this because the fact is that there were lots of delegations that reached out to the Honorable Finance Minister. We ourselves, all our women leaders, MLAs, had gone to meet him last year. The only appeal is, because this is a matter of basic hygiene, this is a product which needs to reach out to every citizen, whether she's in rural India or whether she's in urban, whether she's working or non-working. This is more an issue about the multiple diseases that can be, associated to the menstrual cycle if there is no hygiene. And I think that for a lot of people in rural India who are not even aware of what a sanitary napkin is, sometimes using newspapers, sometimes using cloth, sometimes not using anything at all because of want of the kind of avenues. I think that the NGOs, that the Bachat Ghats, which are constantly trying to make an awareness in rural India, this is a great boost for all those champions, all those women who are working tirelessly to ensure there is hygiene, yes, but more importantly, awareness. So I compliment the GST Council for announcing this, and I'm sure that in the days to come there will be many more victories for women of India, many more wins for discerning citizens who want to be given the kind of justice that all of us have been agitating for.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shaina NC, for joining us on